World of Warcraft stability is under serious threat. That's not good.
Right. This one is pretty damn serious. I think it's something that is rather existential to the long-term health of World of Warcraft, because Blizzard's management is currently sabotaging the World of Warcraft team and Blizzard at large, right? Mm-hmm. I therefore think it's important that the players know what's going on. While we've been having the devs doing a far better job with way more content, of course, there's patch 10.1 on the way. 10.07 is probably not that far away as
it doesn't
well,
seem like it.
Right? We're actually getting a higher patch cadence. The team's getting...
It seems like the people on the World of Warcraft team are working. Yes. It's great.
But Blizzard are going to lose out to the other companies in terms of getting staff in. And we all know that a game is only as good as the team who makes it.
I think one of the reasons why they're probably having problems with staff is because of money. Like, it was very, well known that Blizzard underpaid. Like, you could get a position at Riot for twice as much money as you could at Blizzard, or 40% more money, or something like that. So why would somebody want to work at Blizzard whenever they could work at Riot, and Riot has a better reputation, the games are in a better state, and they pay more money? So guess where all the best talent is going to go? They're going to go to Riot.
So if you gouge your team for short-term profit, you're going to damage your long-term. And for us players, it's the long-term health that matters. Because we need to feel like we can safely invest time in an MMO. Because why would you spend a long time in an MMO that ultimately is being made by a team that feels a bit doomed? So with that said, I definitely am going to get a bit animated.
People are going to get invested.
But let's go.
So the ultimate TLDR here is that Blizzard hosted an internal pre-screened Q&A to address employee concerns over being basically a change in the work-from-home policy that was on decently short notice, right? And it was pre-screened so that management could basically have an easy time and avoid curveballs. But the problem is that Mike Ibarra managed to throw a bunch of curveballs so curved that they actually came back and hit him in the face. He made some moves that, from a basic leadership perspective, and it's kind of funny, with the Pale Beyond, our game is basically about leadership. You know, the audiobook about the Shackleton expedition that I listened to as a kid came bundled with a book about the leadership lessons from Shackleton. And it's just like, holy shit, Mike, how are you so incompetent at your job? Because the thing is, Mike could have actually...
I was confused for a second because Belluar's name is Mike. So it's like, is he talking to himself? Or like he's talking about Mike Ibarra? Okay.
He accomplished all of the points that he wanted to, even though they're unpopular, in so much better of a way by employing like the basics of communicating.
Yeah.
I do not understand how somebody gets to ascend to the point of being leader of Blizzard Entertainment when they're not even able to give a decent performance in a situation like this. And now this has got to the stage where, number one...
It's very hard for me to know whether that is Mike Ybarra's fault. It's like, for example, if you go to a group of fifth graders and you tell them that you're canceling recess, is there a way that you can tell them that without having people get mad? I don't know. I'm pretty sure no matter what, they're going to be mad. It's the same as if you go to work and you're like, yeah, guys, the pizza parties that we're having on Friday, we're canceling the pizza parties. I feel like the moment that you say that, you lose no matter what you say. However, there is a spectrum of losing.
Loads of people from Blizzard have just landed in my email wanting, and honestly not really like leaking anything because they don't want to hurt their projects, but they're landing in my email saying my whole department is, furious and disheartened, and some of my colleagues are looking for other places to work now. Right? I've had people saying, yeah, it sucks. Our managers are just being forced to cringe through it. We know they disagree with their leaders.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Mike. Just as you're about to ship Diablo 4, Just as WoW is getting back up on its feet, what do? You torpedo the morale of your own team. You absolute goddamn dolt. I don't understand. Is there something in the water? What is it?
I'm not sure if all that is really Mike's fault, as I've said. I think that for the returning to work stuff, which is what people are really upset about, because that actually affects their everyday life, I mean, it's very obvious that was a executive decision. That was something that was made by the people at the table of the fucking board. This was not Mike's decision. Because if it was Mike's decision, why is the same thing happening to Activision and King? Well, it's because it was made as an executive decision by Bobby and Bobby's friends. So I think it's kind of unfair to blame it on Mike, because it's not like if Mike says no, then what happens? I mean, they just get rid of Mike. So it's not like he's really going to put up much of a fight there. It's like that Brian Birmingham guy, he got fired and he left the company because he didn't want to have that system with rating the employees. And guess what? They probably still have the system, and that guy's out of a fucking job. So yeah, a lot of people don't want to lose their career over this shit, especially whenever there's nothing they can do. Yeah, they're in Bobby's world.
So yes, people are just threatening to leave. Many other companies like Bungie are just saying on Twitter, hey, come over here.
Let me see what people are saying.
Many other companies like
I don't want to go to your studio. I want to stay at mine and make WoW with my friends. Hug a Blizzard developer today. Man. Industry never been as embarrassed by leadership figures as I am at this moment. Love Overwatch. Simply uproot my wife because the company is summoning everyone over to a singular geographic location. Okay, I was just curious if this is something that was happening in other companies too. Like if other companies are also having that they're scaling back the work from home initiatives from COVID. Because my understanding is that many companies have been scaling back work from home initiatives. It's not something that's unique to Blizzard.
Bungie are just saying on Twitter, hey, come over here. We're better. Now, first off, right, employees, it was announced that employees were only going to get 58% of their usual bonuses, despite a, quote, especially strong quarter because of Dragonflight and Overwatch 2's launch. So doesn't it feel great when, you have to remember, right, Blizzard bonuses have been low because, I mean, their MAUs, they went down to like 22 million. Blizz have been in the shitter, everybody. And the way that internally this was like positioned to staff was, don't worry team, good times are just around the corner.
I love the fucking angles, man.
And as soon as they get around the corner, what is it? Oh, it's Mikey Barrett. Weather's not about taking a piss in your face because your bonus is now 58% of what it was going to be. Again, when this is being treated like a part of your compensation that's being hyped up because, quote, good times are just around the corner.
I do think that is one of the most corrosive things about it. And again, I actually think that all of these things are problems. The only thing that I disagree with Belluar on is the certainty that it's Mike Ybarra's fault that these things are happening. And I'm not saying that he's wrong. I just don't think that I personally don't have enough evidence to say for certainty he did fuck this up. It is his fault. And like, how the fuck can you expect people to ship the best game possible whenever you just cut their revenue sharing options? Well, of course people are going to be mad about this. It's common sense. Yeah, maybe you know something we don't. Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. Mike has to take some fault, man. Stop saying he has no blame at all. The question is, like, what would you do if you were in Mike Ybarra's situation? Like, and I am assuming, like, if he actually thinks these things are good and, like, cutting the bonuses are good, then I think he's delusional and it's the dumbest fucking thing you could possibly do. Absolutely, it's fucking stupid. And I think whoever made that decision is a fucking moron. But I'm just not certain that it's Mike Ybarra's decision. Straight up. Yeah, he's not calling the shots. To be fair, companies are not obligated to give out bonuses. Oh, they're definitely not obligated to give out bonuses. But here's an example, right? It's kind of like the pizza party example that I used before. If you have a pizza party every fucking Friday, and then you take away the pizza party, people are going to be fucking pissed. Now, were you obligated to have a pizza party every Friday? Absolutely not. But you fucking had one, and now you don't. They had a pizza party, now we don't. Fuck you. It's that simple. Yeah, it's setting a standard. It's setting an expectation and then going below the expectation.
Now, the rationale here was just
get your
no
hands
money
off
for
my
you.
pizza.
And when Ryubara was apparently pushed in this, he managed to say something to the effect of, if you think we executives are making a lot of money and you aren't, you're living in a myth. Now, Mike, or should I call you Michael? You know, we'll do this one Michael to Michael.
Okay.
You should be fucking ashamed of yourself, you goddamn ignoramus. I mean, you're in the position that you're in. Do you understand how math works? Do you understand how, like, percentages of a principal will equal different numbers if the principal is different? Because everyone in the industry knows that Blizzard employees have been horribly underpaid over the last few years.
That part is very true, and this is what I was saying before. It's totally fucking true. And I think also, it definitely, I will say 100%, probably not the best argument to use for Mike. Like, definitely, it kind of sucks, right? Because you have people that are pressing you about this issue, and he thinks it's going to go over well. Because, like, you've got to keep in mind, like, let's say they're making $4 million, and their bonuses get cut by the same percentage. Well, now they make $1 million less. So they're losing $1 million, and from their position, they're going to lose a lot more money. So it makes sense to them to talk about that and to think that's legitimate because that's what's happening to them. However, that whenever other people are losing that money, and for, like, let's say one of these executives at Blizzard, the difference between having a pay cut and not is just a number in your bank account versus whenever you're an employee and whenever you take a pay cut, it's actually a quality of life difference. Right? Like, you go from 70% to 58% or something like that. And that's the difference between being able to afford a new car this year. It's the difference between being able to, go out more whenever you wanted to, or to go on vacation, or to, send your kid to college, or save up enough to send your kid to college in 3 years. So it's absolutely a much bigger difference for people that make less money, in the same way that the sales tax is more of a weighted tax against poor people versus rich people, because poor people spend a larger percentage of their money than rich people do in things that actually require sales tax. So that's why it's a bad idea to use that argument. And, like, I wouldn't really use that argument, even though it's technically true.
Compared to competitors like Riot. Actually, just recently, I saw, it was like a YouTube short of a guy who worked at Blizzard for like 7 years, right? His dad was the cinematics director at Blizzard for 20 years. And he basically said, yeah, I was being paid 38% of what my role should be in this location. Working at Blizzard was a really terrible mistake, but it was fine. I moved like a block down the road, or maybe 2 blocks down the road, to Amazon Game Studios, where one assumes he was paid a lot more than 38%.
And they still can't fix the bots? Is that right? Huh? So you still can't figure this shit out with Lost Ark? God damn it.
This is the perception Blizzard has. And why this is stupid for Mike. Look, Mike, you're probably earning more than 200 grand a year. Now, the people whose bonuses you're talking about, maybe they're an artist who's earning 60, 70, 85 grand a year. Now, 85 grand a year USD in my hometown would have you absolutely lap of luxury. But from what
it used to be the same with me. And then about 10 years ago, Austin got to be a really popular place. And now my crack house is worth almost $500,000.
what I understand, in California, especially
it's a
in
crack
Irvine,
home, actually.
Humongo, especially if you want to not have a hellscape commute to work. It is so expensive, the cost of living. I think to the point where the MIT calculator says that the regional living wage is like $23 an hour, 23 something an hour.
God fucking
and QA
damn.
staff are actually being paid living wage is like
Let's see here. Poverty wage, minimum wage. Oh my God, bro. That is brutal.
$23 an hour, 23 something an hour, and QA staff are actually being paid more of like a base of like $22 an hour. So to somebody who's being paid $22 an hour, maybe $30 an hour, so you know they're above the living wage. That's
well, you can explain this with a very simple graph. Here, I'll show you guys this right here. And let's go back. And there are a number of graphs that basically show the same general stuff. But let's see here. Okay. Yeah, this is going to be good enough. Okay, it's not because there's a piece of shit. Okay, that's not it. I apologize. I just want to show you guys something that is actually very insightful here. So there are many other examples of this, and you can look this up for yourself. But this is a graph right here that measures people's happiness and their satisfaction in life versus their income. And as you can see, if you're making, like if you go from here to here, or you go from here to here, or any of these things here, I don't know what this seems like, probably an anomaly, but overall, if you go from this point to this point, you will statistically have a lower quality of life. And this is proven in many different studies in many different ways, is that more money equals more happy up to about 120 and probably in California, $200,000 a year. But the truth is that whenever you're going up, and so like, for example, whenever somebody here is saying, hey, I have to go from here to here with their Blizzard bonuses, you're going from 600,000 to 400,000 a year. That doesn't matter whenever the person is going from here to here. Do you see my point? Because this actually has a much more tangible and effect, a much more obvious effect on a person's quality of life. It actually changes what happens to you. Happier from 600 to 400K? Yeah, sure. But like the point is still kind of the same. Never trust survey data? But like it makes sense though, right? Because like how much more are you going to be able to do with your life whenever you're making $250 and you go up to $350,000 a year? Probably not a lot. But if you're making $50,000 a year and you go to making $150,000 a year, same difference in numbers. That is a lifetime, a life-altering difference. It's massive. You go from making $20,000 a year to making $120,000 a year. That's a massive fucking difference. Like, I've been there. I've been at every fucking stage here. And I can absolutely tell you that whenever you're making enough money, like, unless you're the kind of person like Andrew Tate that's trying to buy a Bugatti every fucking day, it's not going to matter after you get up to like 200, 300K. Because you're not spending that fucking money. That money is going into an account that accrues interest and the number goes up in your bank account. But functionally, it doesn't really do a lot for you. Like, you're still eating the same food, you're still going to the same places, you're still seeing the same people, you're still seeing the same movies, you're able to do the same stuff. That's the point that I'm getting. So yes, absolutely, it is something that is factually true, that like executives lose a lot more money than the average people do, but it's not based around. People are not going to be sympathetic to it because that number is theoretical at that point because they're not using that money. It's not a functional difference in that executive's life. In the same way. Diminishing returns. Yeah, I mean, come on.
Totally good, but they still have stresses. They're still not able to maybe support a child if that's what they want to do, which is important, by the way, because as time goes on, you want to retain your employees. Now, what if your employees have things such as a goddamn life? I say into the microphone, right? Where maybe they want to have a kid, do a marriage.
Time to get fired.
Go on a holiday with their limited quantity of, spins around the sun. This is no way to run a company. This is so stupid.
Yeah.
And Mike basically was like, well, look, us executives have also had our bonuses cut to 58%. Yes, Mike, but you're almost certainly earning more than 200 grand a year or 300 grand a year as the leader of Blizzard Entertainment.
Absolutely, probably making over
What
500K.
a callous, crass, offensive, tone-deaf, inhumane, bullshit thing to say, Ybarra. Your position is untenable. I hope you do not stay in your current role for long.
It's hard to know, like, what to say in that situation. You know? Is it like, yeah, what do you say in that situation that will make people happy? Because, like, I'm under the impression that if you're telling people that they're getting a massive pay cut to their bonuses after they just worked their ass off and they had products sell well, I don't know if there's anything that you can tell people that would be good, that would not have this same exact result. Not what he said? Yeah. It is what it is. Cut your own pay instead, like the Nintendo CEO. The problem is that Mike Ybarra did not even have the ability to change his pay to the same pay as the co-leader of Blizzard whenever they were both appointed as leaders of the company. I think Mike Ybarra does not even have remotely as much power as people think he does. And he is simply a figurehead that has a relatively good public image that people think that Blizzard put up there to be effectively a scapegoat for their decisions. That's what I think happened.
Because you play World of Warcraft,
yes.
Enjoy selling some Mythic Plus boosts in your guild, and maybe can time a 24 or something, that doesn't mean you're a good leader of a company. And from just the cliff notes of this Q&A, which have been extensively leaked to the press and extensively leaked from multiple independent sources to us, you're fucking incompetent and you should not hold your job. It's as simple as that.
I think the problem is that a lot of the executive leadership doesn't really care about motivating employees because they still have the mindset that they will continue to make money regardless of if the employees are happy or not, which is true until it's not true. And that's exactly what happened with Dragonflight, is that Blizzard was coasting on that value. Shadowlands broke records. BFA broke records. Legion broke records. Warlords of Draenor broke records, and then it broke more records. But Dragonflight didn't, because eventually you can't keep coasting.
Through, Mike, obviously, Preach, he flew over to the States. Ybarra claimed he didn't know who Preach was. Now, I think that's pretty fucking unlikely, considering
I have no idea, yeah.
One of the most notable names in Warcraft, and Ybarra is a longtime WoW player. Seems a bit odd, but Preach's take then is basically, wow, I mean, I believe what John and Holly and Ian were saying to me. Oh, this is what they're working under? So yeah, Ybarra and co are sitting there on high six-figure salaries probably, even if it's like 200 grand or something. Just the amount of...
I would not be surprised if Mike Ybarra had some sort of an executive incentive program and he made close to 7 figures a year. I would not be surprised at all.
Respect there, right? He also defended the stack ranking system, which is something that basically means the team leads are literally forced to throw their employees under the bus because it mandates that a certain, basically, it takes the bell curve and it's like, past here, they all get punished. And that punishment is literally, you won't get promoted, your bonus will be smaller.
Yep.
Got smaller anyway, right?
Oops. Yeah, it's going to get smaller anyway, don't worry about it.
The lowest performing employee is actually doing fine. And this is why the very notable WoW Classic engineer, one of the faces of WoW Classic, left.
Yeah, this guy did interviews with like SFAN and stuff. Everybody knew this guy.
Because of this moronic system. Do you want a situation where, let's say one of your employees maybe is worried about their health, maybe has a family tragedy or something like that, and maybe they go from being above average to average, but they happen to be in a good, well-performing team. Does that person, should you really slash their bonus?
No. I mean, there is the Steve Jobs approach of yes. And Apple was massively successful under Steve Jobs. And it is heartless and evil, and there are a lot of people that do things like that. Personally, I don't like that kind of stuff. I think it's weird, and I think also, I've always looked at whenever you have a team of people, and you have people that look up to you, you have to bring home the bacon. You have to make the people in your team happy, and if you don't do that, then they will leave. Or they will resent you, and this will cause problems at some point in the future. So yeah, I think this is silly, but it's not really a surprise at all.
Is this all just to like put more gold plates on Bobby's goddamn yacht? So anyway, this is strike 2 out of 3. Mike's third strike was actually even worse. Again, this is the ignoramus in chief of Blizzard Entertainment. When asked about the return to office policy, he said, at the end of the day, we want people to be happy, and if decisions about being happy don't align with where we're going and you won't be happy, then you'll have to do what will make you happy. So he basically just said, if you don't like it, leave. Now, Mike, that's not how you run a company. And actually, the point is, 3 strikes isn't enough. There's also a 4th strike. He called out that the 2 most needed, and I think the 2 departments of Blizzard that are frustrated, that players are angry about the most, are QA and customer service. He said...
Very true. Like, absolutely, as a player, I totally agree with that, yeah.
They're not considered long-term disciplines. In other words, you do...
Yeah, well, that explains why it's a problem.
CS or QA for a low wage, and then you get a real job.
Oh, absolutely, and that's just what happens, and that's the way they treat QA all the time. It's true. Like, how many of you guys have called QA, and it's somebody on the other side of the world, and it's like this person does not even speak English as their main language, and they're not able to help you, and they put you on hold for 5 fucking times. You don't get what you want, and that's just what happens. Every company does this shit. So yeah, it's super annoying, but it is true. Most companies treat QA like they are basically, instead of being janitors for the building, they're janitors for the game.
Nice one, Ybarra. Is it any wonder why I have customer service and QA people also in my email?
Oh, you said QA and CS? You realize that they said both of them, right? Like, I don't want to go back and look at it again, but it was customer service and QA. Like, I understand that I said something that was slightly different, and so everybody who thinks that they're smart is trying to correct me, but you're not correcting me, you're just stupid. They said both of them. Stop trying to correct me on shit. It's so annoying.
Inbox, as I'm sure every WoW creator
Especially when
does,
you're wrong.
and just about all of the press. Would you even like to think about the amount of privileged information that people now hold?
Oh, yeah. No doubt.
About your future projects? I will not say their code names here. Like, Mike, do you actually understand how to run a large company and how to make sure that the ship is not mega goddamn leaky? Jason Schreier is now tap dancing his way to 500,000 Bloomberg articles. All because you managed to torpedo your team's morale. Again, you fucking ignoramus.
I think this is really bad, but again, I just don't know if this is Mike's fault or not. And I think that, you know, with Brian Birmingham leaving the company and nothing changing because he left the company, like, what's Mike supposed to do? Who do we blame? Well, we blame the board of directors at Blizzard. At Activision Blizzard King, we blame Bobby Kotick. Because he's clearly the one making the decisions. Do you think Bobby Kotick, like, you think fucking Mike Ybarra, I mean? Mike Ybarra is the one that made the decision that the Activision employees have to go into the fucking office too? No, he didn't do that. Do you think he went over to the Candy Crush team and told them that? Absolutely fucking not. But I know who did. It's fucking Bobby. Bobby did that, and then Bobby said, you've got to tell the employees all this shit, and if you don't, you're fucking gone. That's what happened. And I mean, again, if there's somebody from Blizzard that's listening to this and thinking to themselves, you are so fucking wrong, DM me, and I'll keep it completely confidential, and I will never fucking defend this shit again. But I haven't had a single person defend me, message me, or say any of this shit. So I don't know. But from my perspective, it seems very obvious that it is not a Mike Ybarra problem, because it is happening to all 3 of the companies under the parent company and not just Blizzard. But we have no evidence, though, so this is accountable. So he's accountable for now. But you do have evidence. Evidence that it wasn't his decision by the fact that it happened to all of the companies under the parent company and not just his. That is direct fucking evidence that he probably didn't do it. Any degree of logic, you can immediately fucking see that this probably did not happen. Because they all report to the board, all three company leaders, all three decided they agree, they have accountability regardless of the board. You can say that they have accountability for sure. And you can always make the argument that maybe Mike Ybarra could have fought it and it would have been different, things could have changed, and if somebody else was in his position, could they have made this not happen? And I don't know the answer to that. I have no idea. Like Brian Birmingham tried that with what do you call it? With like the ranking system, like the parsing system at Blizzard Entertainment, and he's gone. And guess what? Not only is he gone, but it's going to be harder for him to find another job because look at all of these other companies. Like, do you think these companies want to hire somebody who like caused problems? Because fundamentally, Brian Birmingham caused problems for Blizzard. Companies don't want to hire somebody who thinks for themselves and starts their own fucking ideology and makes decisions that are counter to what the company wants to do. So it actually hurt Brian Birmingham not only in losing his existing job, but in getting future jobs as well. That's just what happens. Let's say he didn't agree to any of his changes and he had no way to change anything. He's solely responsible for his comments, which were out of touch, period. Yeah, I think that the comments about how everybody is losing money and it's not just the people, that's definitely a bad comment for sure. Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. 100%. They want yes men, not self-righteous for the people type employees. 100%. Why is this such a huge fucking deal whenever it's happening in so many companies now that COVID is over? I agree with you. And that's why I was asking, like, if there are other companies that are asking people to come back and work in office as well. And I think there are a lot of other companies that are doing this. Blizzard is not unique in any way.
And of course, have you ever been a little bit pissed off at why a customer service ticket either gets an automated response or just takes ages, or why the game ships with bugs? I don't know. Maybe ones like, say, the Hunter Bow and Razageth being that imbalanced to the point where the LFR version of the weapon is in fact superior than the Mythic Raid version.
Oh, I don't even think that's a bug. I just think that's bad balance. Like a good example is, remember that fucking arena quest in the in fucking Omaran Plains? Like where you go to the guy and then it doesn't summon the boss that you need to kill. Like that's a fucking bug. Like the Razageth bow is just really good.
Of any other ranged weapon in the game, something that impacted the balance of World of Warcraft for months after the release of the expansion that is absolutely the expansion that needs to do the hard work to get the game back, that unfortunately did have quite a few bugs. I remember all those times I tried to do rock climbing quests, couldn't click on the first rock, didn't work, feature gone. Yep. I don't know, Mike. Seems like those are kind of relevant. So anyway, to say I'm disappointed is putting it lightly. I think whenever leadership is anti-human in the way that Mike Ybarra has been, I don't know. Mike, you're a fucking bloated Madame Tussauds walking corpse creature. You do not deserve the salary that you've had. You do not deserve even 58% of...
Well, if it makes Belluar feel any better, we can go back to the original post, and you can see that Mike Ybarra, I actually forgot to mention this, maybe it's changed since then, but we went to the role with our previous compensation. Whenever they made him the fucking fall guy for Blizzard Entertainment in the midst of a global fucking, like one of the biggest scandals in video game history, and they put him as the guy in front of it, they didn't even give him a raise. We went into the role with our previous compensation. Wow.
bonus, because what you're actually doing is actively harming the company. And now I really do have serious questions as to why, say, Jen O'Neill was only your co-leader for 2 months. What made her leave? You know.
To be fair, I do think Belluer is wrong on this one, and I think it's verifiably wrong. If you look right here, Mike and Jen O'Neill, and this is her saying this, both went to the leadership of the company to be paid for the same amount of work for the same role, and it was denied. So the idea that it's Mike Ybarra's fault that she left, I think is verifiably not true based off of her own statements. You just look at it right there. So, and yeah, here's the article. It happened like 2 years ago, and I remember reading it, and I remember whenever I read it, I was like, oh yeah, this is what it was. So yeah, I mean, a lot of people might not remember this, but yes, this has absolutely nothing to do with Mike Ybarra, and in fact, Mike Ybarra went out of his way to try to have them paid the same amount of money, and the request was denied. You're giving him a lot more credit? Well, I'm not giving him a lot of credit in this regard. I'm literally reading what he and the woman who Belluer's talking about actually said about the situation. So unless you think that she is lying about him trying to get her to be paid more money, why would she do that? You see what I'm saying? Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
Now, what made her leave? Why is it the case that staff morale is actually pretty damn bad at Vicarious Visions, now renamed Blizzard Albany? Why is it that morale is actually pretty bad at Proletariat, the studio you acquired to ensure that World of Warcraft can have a reasonable content cadence?
This was one of the big concerns that I had, and if you go back to my videos about this original controversy, you'll see this, is that my concern was that Blizzard would fix these sexual assault problems, but not the actual problems that cost money. Like paying workers a livable wage. Like not making them play musical chairs for bonuses, where like somebody just loses a bonus no matter what. You have Hunger Games for your 58% bonus. Like, yeah, you change all the women to fruit, but you don't change all of the fucking, the sick days to vacation days. Because you don't want to do that. So, and I was worried about this back then, is that they would look at these like social issues as a misdirection for what they're actually doing that's harmful to all employees.
So here's the thing. As WoW players, you got to understand, big daddy capitalism. And this is not Bell's a commie. It's definitely not that, right? I mean, we run a business here. We literally do.
No.
What we can talk about, though, is how about we frame the conversation as like this. If the time horizon of your sort of big system is very long, then you're working towards the long-term good.
Sure.
Right? And that's supposed to be the nice virtuous cycle.
That's nice.
However, if you are doing a very short-term, one may even say quarterly, squeeze to get as much profits as you can, evidently, even if it's at the expense of people, do you think that's going to be good for World of Warcraft? I mean, you, like the other end of this camera, I suppose, watching this video right now, do you think that World of Warcraft is going to be a better game in a world where Mike Ybarra, number one, in a world where, let's see, their bonuses get cut after they ship their best received expansion in years, and Blizzard Entertainment as a whole sees its MAUs go from, a low of like 22 million to 45 million. Do you think it's good for World of Warcraft as a game that, developers will be hyped to work on with their friends? If that happens, do you think the World of Warcraft will be a game that has fewer bugs if the QA department are thrown under the bus? Do you think the World of Warcraft will be a game with better customer service if, customer service also is thrown under the bus? No, absolutely not. So this is Mike Ybarra, the leader of Blizzard Entertainment. And
yeah, I think that's also, it's a good way for Belluer to frame it, because he's framing it in a way of, what does this mean for you, the customer? Because I do agree that while I don't think that all of this stuff is explicitly Mike Ybarra's fault, or at least I don't think there's enough evidence to draw that conclusion, I do think that a logical person could conclude that massive bonuses being cut, forcing people to go into work whenever they don't want to, and throwing customer service under the bus will not result in a better end product for the user. I can pretty much assume that to be the case.
Big gamer bro, Warcraft man himself, who loves a little mythic dungeon on the side. He's just like you and me, boys. Do you think he's going to make World of Warcraft better or worse with this style of leadership? Ultimately, what's going to happen is it's going to be a revolving door of staff. They will lose knowledge to companies that are willing to treat their staff better. Basically, for the games industry in Cali right now, it is goddamn open season. Blizzard Entertainment are fish in the barrel. Let's go get some fish. Let's get developers.
Oh, yeah.
Guess what, everybody? I think these pesky Blizzard developers may even accept a lower offer because their current working conditions suck balls. Wow. Nice one, Mike. Have you been promoted out of competence? Have you been promoted out of competence, Mike? I think you have. Oh my God. I mean, hey, me and Matt will charge you like, I don't know, 50 grand an hour for some professional consultancy. Because actually at this stage, I think that pretty much everybody watching this goddamn video could do a better job than the current moron-in-chief, Mike Ybarra, who of course is probably the successor of, previous moron-in-chief J. Allen Brack, who also managed to put his foot in his goddamn mouth every friggin' second.
I feel like J. Allen Brack, again, I feel like this guy gets a little bit too much hate. I did the math whenever they explained, whenever the, whenever the investigation happened. And I remember whenever J. Allen Brack became the president of Blizzard, all of his hair was brown. In 2 years, it wasn't. None of his hair was brown. And I did the math on when the investigation started, and this dude got promoted, and within 6 months of being promoted to president, he's like, hey, by the way, the state of California is investigating your company for criminal charges, and this investigation is going to take years, and you're part of the investigation. We'd like to talk to you right now. Please step outside your office. So yeah, I mean, the problems might be more fundamental. Yeah, I think that a lot of the problems with Blizzard were things that happened like many, many years ago. Like, it's not something that just happened recently, like in 2020. These are things that happened in 2005, in 2008, in 2013, 2016, 2015. These were all problems that Mike Ybarra and also J. Allen Brack had nothing to do with. Now, I also think that they completely fucked up, or at least J. Allen Brack fucked up a bunch of other stuff, like with Classic, for example. But I wouldn't blame it all on him. You just do the math on the time frame.
It is a wonder that WoW actually exists as a good game, and that the people who work on this game have to put up with so much goddamn bullshit. While the corporation has not earned our $15 a month, I absolutely think that the developers have. Not that they get it, because their bonuses have been cut.
Well, they get part of it,
So
just less.
That's it for this week. I've just kicked my microphone. That's it for this week. Sorry to end it on a little bit of a bummer like that, but at the end of the day, I think it is important that as customers, we know how our products are being made. It's good for our own personal, worldview, our understanding of what's going on, but it's also really important because Mike Ybarra is going to make World of Warcraft worse, and that's probably not good for us as people who like World of Warcraft.
Yeah, that would be bad.
So that's not ideal. And with that said, obviously, the Pale Beyonds came out. We still do have a few pesky things to fix and some UX stuff happening, which is happening like over the next few days. We're pretty much going around the clock on that. So trust me, the value of QA, we know it. Pick the game up, leave an honest review in Steam. We'll be back with much more content. One of the nice things about seemingly the game selling well is maybe we don't have to panic about things as much. And I think if we're not panicked, then we will make better videos, which is very good.
I agree with
So
that.
thank you to everybody who has supported us at the Pale Beyond. With that said, catch you in the next video.
So yeah, I mean, overall, I can see why he's upset about it. I think that it makes a lot of sense. I just don't think that it's necessarily Mike Ybarra's fault. Now, if Bellurin knows something I don't know, I'd like to know it. Because I don't want to be defending something that's not fucking true. But overall, like, I'm not convinced that it's his fault, just based off of how these decisions are being made and what the history is behind it. So yeah, and I think that obviously it's good to be critical of these decisions, but it's also important to be critical in the right ways. So it's hard to say. I don't know. Bell has insider info always, and that's what I'm not so sure about, because he might know things that I don't know. So it makes me feel like, oh man, am I defending something that I don't fully understand or not? So, was a product of a company cashing in on its company's procrastination? I don't know. Should Mike be defended for being a yes man? I mean, I think it's easy to call somebody a yes man whenever it's not your job that's on the line for not being a yes man. It's always easy to say, oh, well, you know, you're just being a yes man for this. Well, of course he is, right? He might have a family. He has an entire life. It's like, yeah, you could say like, oh, it's very easy to, you know, you could fight it. You could do this. You could do that. You could, you know, threaten to quit. Well, what if he does quit? Then what? Then what about his family? What about his wife? What about his kids, right? What about where he lives? You know, like, what about his whole life? So it might sound like a very easy solution. Oh, and then, by the way, it won't change anything. The same as with whenever Brian Birmingham quit. Everybody was like, Blizzard bad for 2 days, and then it's not like the system's changed. It's not like they started getting rid of the system. No, they just said, fuck you, you're gone, and we'll replace you instantly. And that's what happened. Let me go back over. I'll read some of these comments because it's very disappointing to see this happen. Yeah, it fucking sucks. Managers have two main jobs, and that's their own decision. Press those below you and protect those above you. Upper managers get to where they are by protecting those above them. That's an interesting way to look at it. I think that is kind of reductive, but it depends. How do you know so much about everything? I mean, I don't really, you don't, I'm not a fucking genius, okay? It's not hard to understand this. Like, it's really not. So I even made this graph for people. So, for example, okay, here, let me explain this. So if you have a change that happens, because Activision Blizzard King is the main company, and King is fine, and Blizzard is fine, but Activision is not fine, then the chances are that Activision Blizzard King is not at fault. Right? Like, logically? But if Blizzard is bad, if Blizzard is bad, and Activision has the same thing, and King has this same thing, you know where I think the problem lies? At the top. Because that's the common denominator. You don't have to be a genius to be able to identify a common denominator and then think to yourself, wow, the common denominator between all of these problems is this one parent company. I bet it's the parent company that's causing the problems. It's common sense. Let's see. I'll read a few more of these. Does it really matter where the problem is? Yes, it does. Because whenever you start attacking a person for something that they didn't do that's not their problem, then you're wasting your time and you're creating unnecessary hostility. And I think it actually serves to push yourself. It push you in a direction that is not productive. Everybody wants a witch to burn, but sometimes that's not the best option. Yeah, the board is the problem. Exactly. It's more that his alleged statements don't give the impression of someone who is opposed to decisions, but it feels like, you know, guys, it's not my choice. I'm on your side, but fuck him. It seems like he, to an extent, shares some of the board's viewpoints. I think that's pretty fair, because whenever you say that, like, you know, Mike Ybarra is saying, oh, it's bad for us too, etc., I mean, in his mind, you've got to keep in mind, like, he got promoted to this position very quickly, And he's probably not some massive fucking genius leader with like 20 years of experience of doing this in the same way that, I don't know, like Bobby Kotick probably has done this for fucking 50 years. Mike Morhaime did this for fucking 20 years. Like many people probably don't have that level of skill. And he probably said something that sounded like, oh, well, I'm commiserating with them. It's my problem too. They'll understand. And it just didn't work. It was a bad shot. So yeah, I think it's fair to say that's bad, but I don't think it's fair to say the decisions are because of him. Because I don't think that logically makes sense. He chooses to be in that position. He gets paid to be bitched at. I don't think it's completely fair, but he's not making it easier on himself. I dislike that idea a lot, that because somebody is in a position that we can falsely attribute things with no evidence to them. I don't think that makes sense. I don't like the idea that just because somebody is in a position that we get to misrepresent what they say and attack them for things that don't logically make sense. I didn't say that. No, okay, well, this is what you did say. I'll read it word for word. He chooses to be in that position. He gets paid to get bitched at. I don't think it's completely fair, but he's not making it any easier on himself. I think that he gets paid to get bitched at is, well, also, by the way, is not true because they didn't even give him a raise. We went into the role with our previous compensation, so he didn't even get a raise in the first place. So that's just wrong right out the gate. And then on top of that, I hate the idea that there are acceptable targets for like harassment and irrational vitriol. Because I think that whenever you create irrational targets for harassment and vitriol and say it's okay to be irrationally angry at this person because they get paid a lot of money, what happens is that you create a class of people that bullying is now acceptable towards. And it's also acceptable in a way that is extremely subjective. Because what you're doing is you're making a subjective judgment on something that effectively takes away some person's agency, their humanity, and their own right to be a person. So I completely disagree with what you're saying, and I think that you're wrong not only on like a ethical level, but you're wrong on a foundational level because he's literally not even getting paid more money, and he said that, or Jen O'Neill said that explicitly in her statement whenever she left the company. So next. Let's see here. That's the same thing as the Twitter freak said about people who played Hogwarts Legacy. Yes, very true. How do we create systematic change in which the top dogs are okay to alleviate their bonuses to the benefit of the employees? The reason why these things happen is because most of people's position in a company is on a quarterly basis. So if you know like any type of stuff about like accounting and shit like this, people try all kinds of these little weird effects and changes that they can make on, like, let's say, I'm trying to think of a way to put this, like different like accounting tricks. Like, oh, we're going to expense this out of an account here into this other account, so this loss doesn't show up until next quarter, and then we can deal with it next quarter by expensing it onto this other thing, and then at the next quarter after that, we're going to write this off as a loss and then claim a tax benefit for it. There's like so much fucking kicking the can down the road, you would lose your mind, okay? And keep in mind, my understanding of accounting is like very minimal. Like, I've taken a few classes, I know a decent amount about it, but like the type of stuff that people that actually are finance majors and have a job in finance, they know infinitely more about this than I do, and so I'm sure I'm barely cracking the surface of this. So there's a million different ways that they have to do this. You know, it's like the old idea, like, you know, Eskimos have 100 words for ice and snow. Well, accountants have 100 different words for losing money. So keep that in mind. If nothing's his fault, then what is his actual responsibility? Well, I think it's also, I mean, what is his responsibility? I would say how Blizzard is running, like the state of the company, the state of the games, etc. I would say the state of the games is his responsibility to a large extent. Again, and also like nothing, very rarely, whenever you look at something logically, so responsibility, so what you're talking about is the difference between responsibility and fault. So a lot of things are his fault because that's his position and he's responsible for that outcome. However, the things that are his responsibility are multiple other people's responsibility as well. So it's like, yes, you're right, the buck stops here. Totally true. However, if you want to look at this analytically and productively, we all know that's not actually the case. Does that make sense? Responsibility doesn't mean they had control over it. Yes. Work in finance, you just explained Curial accounting better than I could. You're a genius. Well, if it makes you feel any better, my accounting exam, I got a 73 in it. And the first time I learned how to do an accounting sheet was actually on the final exam. Because I really didn't know what the fuck I was doing. And I didn't want to learn it. And I finally did it at the very end. And it was so funny because it actually made sense to me whenever I took my final. That was the only class that I took like that year that I got a B in. And I don't even know how I got a B in that class. I got like really good grades everywhere else, but in that class I got like fucking like an 81. Some shit like that. So yeah, what's his fault then, if any? I can admit I was wrong. Thanks for educating me. So what's his fault? I think that it's his fault for not communicating it in a more effective way. I think that Belluer is totally right that him being an ineffective communicator is totally his responsibility, and he can do a much better job at that. In terms of morale and doing other things to offset this negativity, I think that he could have probably approached it in a better way. And also, you can look at solving this problem in an aggregate by creating more amenities at work and using different types of expenses to maybe give people, on-campus lunches, or give them some sort of ride-sharing thing, or give them, more rebates for gas, or something like that. Like, find another way that you can incentivize them, like maybe pizza parties, right? Unironically. Have things like that add value. So, yeah, I mean, that's what I would say. I think that's where I was landing. I was approached it the wrong way. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, of course, he does share some fault of it. Of course he does. But I don't feel right because I feel like it's treating him like the fall guy. That's about it. And I think that these problems are actually extremely systemic, and they are coming from the board of directors that exists way above his head. So that's fundamentally what I think. I could talk about this for hours, but at the end of the day, it's really disappointing as a WoW player because fundamentally what Belluer said at the end of the video is totally true. These changes do not seem like they will be conducive to an improved product. Like these will not solve, these will not make the game better. And that's what sucks. Let me go over and watch this video though. Oh, let me link you guys this video. I'm glad Belluer, even though I disagreed with some of the things in the video, I'm glad Belluer makes videos talking about this kind of stuff. I hope that we have more stuff like this and we see more people trying to have at least a little bit of, I mean, it's so hard to have any accountability in today's day and age. And in some cases, that's a good thing. But in many other cases, it's not. And I think it's very important that, at least he's standing up for the employees and he's doing something that he at least thinks is helping people. So yeah, that's what it comes down to for me.